This is Health Yeah, your weekly update on what's going on in the health, wellness, and medical world with Monica Robbins.
There's an epidemic across the country that doctors say can pose a serious health problem, but it's not what you might think. It's an epidemic of loneliness.
Loneliness is more that feeling of being alone and like people and not connecting, even if you're in a room full of people.
The U.S. Surgeon General released a report in 2023 saying half of American adults experience measurable loneliness, and that number is even higher for younger adults. We look at ways to combat this problem and build connections within our communities. It's all straight ahead on this week's edition of Prescription for Life. Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Monica Robbins. The U.S. Surgeon General calls loneliness a public health crisis. Studies link loneliness and social isolation to an increased risk of dementia, anxiety, heart disease, stroke, and even early death. Individuals and communities are doing what they can to combat this problem, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But first, the health report detailed the serious problem loneliness poses for people, comparing the risks for premature death to smoking cigarettes daily. And it's more common than we might think, with 1 in 2 American adults reporting experiencing loneliness.
Social connection is as fundamental to our mental and physical health as food, water, and sleep. And it affects our performance and productivity at work, school, and in our communities.
He also said we need to focus on community organizations and mobilizing the health sector to raise awareness, and offered more simple ways to build connection.
Answer a phone call from a friend. Invite someone over to share a meal. Listen and be present during conversation. Seek out opportunities to serve others.
Connect, share, listen, and serve. All sounds simple enough. And the report also looked at how loneliness is impacting young adults. Charmaine Nero has more about that group.
There have been concerns even pre-COVID with the lack of social connection or the decrease in social connection that people are experiencing because of technology in our lives and how the community has been set up.
According to the report, Americans spent about 20 minutes a day in person with friends in 2020, down from 60 minutes daily nearly 2 decades earlier. With the loneliness epidemic hitting young people ages 15 to 24 especially hard.
Loneliness is more that feeling of being alone and like people and not connecting, even if you're in a room full of people. And that can happen for people as well, especially for those who maybe lost some social skills during the pandemic or didn't have a chance to develop them.
While about 1 in 2 American adults of all ages and backgrounds report experiencing loneliness, experts are now calling for more pro-connection policies to increase education on the benefits of social connection.
It's extremely important that we prioritize this for ourselves, and that those of us in medical and mental health, that we also ask our patients and work with our patients on increasing that now that we have a better understanding of how important it is.
Charmaine Nero, KARE 11 News.
Now to our expert who digs deeper into this issue, including how we got here and how we can get out. Joining me now is Dr. Ardashir Hashmi, who is Chief of Geriatric Medicine at Cleveland Clinic. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. During the pandemic, it's understandable that people felt lonely, especially during lockdown, and especially for older people who were more vulnerable and, they couldn't see the grandkids, they couldn't see the kids. But in last May, the U.S. Surgeon General declared loneliness an epidemic. Why?
I think multiple factors, multiple stressors, and then you superimpose a pandemic on it, right? So we are ironically in a hyper-connected world, and yet we are very lonely. And the reason that we're very lonely is life has changed a lot. We're living longer. There's all these medical advances, so that's a good thing. But with that, as we all know, a lot of loss. People pass away, they move away, families are living sort of across state lines, even maybe internationally. And so with all of this sort of mobility, the sense of loss as someone is going through the various stages and getting older, it's great that they're living longer, but their world is now like really shrinking. And then, what we're hearing on the news and everything that's happening with the pandemic, it was just a tipping point, I think, of something that had been happening a long time. And I think COVID just sort of opened up, our eyes to a problem that had been hiding in plain sight for a long time.
Is this something that only happens to older people?
Everyone. I mean, I think the latest statistics again for that is above the age of 16. You've got 1/3 of our population feeling lonely and socially isolated. And then 65 plus, half of our older adults feeling socially isolated. So.
What's the difference between loneliness and social isolation?
Great question. And I think very important for us as individuals to know. I mean, I could have a lot of social connections. So if I have a lot of social connections, I'm not socially isolated, but amidst those social connections, that feeling of solitude, that loneliness, I could still be very lonely, even if I have multiple connections, because they're not high quality connections. I have them, but what is the depth of those conversations? How many of them are sort of FaceTime sort of conversations, face-to-face conversations? And how many of them are enriching connections that actually enrich my soul and spiritually make us whole and contribute to our physical health too?
It's not easy to find, though. And you mentioned we're technology connected. Everybody has social media these days, even, 80-year-old grandmother.
Yeah.
You'd think that with social media, they're catching up with old high school friends.
Yeah.
That's not enough?
So it's actually creating silos, right? So I could go into the social media world and be lost there for hours. I mean, there are fascinating things in there. But I'm interacting with a medium that is not really responding to me. It's not interactive. It's just one way. I'm receiving. There's no conversation in it. There's no companionship in it. There is no, let alone sort of side-by-side sitting like we are. There's no letter writing in it, in terms of I can't emote. I can't express my feelings. And I can use it almost as a temporary balm, a temporary fix. I get a high out of it. I'm not saying that it's necessarily an addiction, but it's starting to become like that because it is so rampant, it is pleasurable, but it leaves you feeling even more lonely because when you step out of that world, you look around your real world, I'm still lonely, I'm still socially isolated, and then I keep on going back to this dependency on this world that is really not having a conversation with me. It's just giving me one-way information.
We just taught our 87-year-old mother-in-law how to text, and you can communicate, via Messenger through social media. Is it the same? Is it the same when you're not talking face-to-face or you're not even talking on the phone?
No, it isn't the same. Again, is the quality of that connection. Technology, is as good as we human beings employ it. I think virtual technology, virtual platforms that actually connect us and we have some FaceTime with each other meaningfully, where I can see your expression, you can see mine, you can, sort of respond and, support me. Those are great. But, the personality that gets lost in it, the messages that get confused, the messages that get lost or maybe even misconstrued in all of these other types of communication, that is irreplaceable.
I think a lot of people are dismissive of loneliness, but why shouldn't they be? How does this impact you physically?
Multiple ways. We know that 30% increase in the risk of heart disease and stroke risk.
Wow.
50% increase in the risk of dementia. These are facts that are just so glaring and scary that we need to really, sort of pay attention to them. And I think something that isn't talked about enough is if I'm feeling lonely and I become depressed, there's going to be something called anhedonia. Anhedonia is things that I used to find pleasurable, things that are my matters most, that sort of make me go up and do them to, give me joy. I just will not feel like doing it. And I'll have no other explanation for this than the loneliness and socially isolated milieu that I've been in and I'm stuck in.
So a lot of people define themselves by what they do for a living. And then all of a sudden, maybe they lose their spouse, maybe they get divorced, and then they retire.
Yeah.
And now they find themselves sitting at home with nothing to do, and they never really made those friend connections. They have a lot of acquaintances, but not enough friend connections, and they don't know what to do. And like you said, they find themselves sitting in front of the television all day. What do they do?
Thank you for asking this. I mean, Monica, I see this every day. And sort of my mentor used to sort of turn to the person who had retired, and he would say, sort of to him or her and their spouse, how is it going for both of you? And I'd be like, why do you ask the question to both? And he used to say, look, in other cultures, they have this term, rewired, not retired. So if you don't plan for what things are going to look like after retirement, if you don't stay mentally active, engaged, very soon you'll be engaged in all of this passive activity where you're not doing the things that you always thought that you would be doing because you have no plan. And when you have no plan, you're just going to be sitting there at home, probably getting in the way or in the hair of your spouse or significant other, and adding to that stress because you're so used to, even though we all have job stresses and sort of day-to-day life, when we lose that, we lose a lot of circles that we've built up over time, our own sense of self-worth, how society sees us, and there's no calendar that I have to use as an anchor to sort of tell me exactly how I'm going to stay engaged. And so I have to now do this all on my own with my own creativity. And it can be very constructive if it's planned, but it becomes very destructive if it's not planned because I'm lonely, I'm frustrated, I'm sad, and then I start to sort of maybe even take it out on people who I don't mean to take it out on.
So for the person who's already in that position, how do you fix it? What do you do?
I think you've got to be very mindful. Scheduling this sort of activity is very important. There is this huge phenomenon in the United Kingdom, very popular, called social prescribing. So when you go to our doctor, they give us a pill, a medical prescription. Just like your prescription for life, social prescribing is me finding out what matters most to you, and it could be multiple things that only you are the expert in, and then connecting you to those avenues, those partners, those folks who are already doing this, but they're looking for people who are engaged in that activity. And our role, I think, as clinicians, to be that ambassador, to be that connector. That social prescription is absolutely key because it helps us do our job. It helps me stay healthy as an individual. So you go to your doctor, you've got to ask them about the social prescription, and also to actually plan with your team, with your health team. How am I going to schedule by day of the week the things that I'm going to be doing? Because if you schedule it, they'll get done. If you don't schedule it, it seems kind of strange in the beginning. If you do schedule them, it's amazing. The variety of things is very necessary to keep us enriched, both from our soul, mindset, heart set, physically, multiple benefits.
So you can only play so many rounds of golf in the summer, and then
exactly.
I'm hearing from you, I think a lot of people need to, you talked about self-worth and volunteering.
Absolutely.
That sounds like something, not only you'll find people with the same interest as you, but is that somewhere where you will make those connections?
Scientifically proven. The volunteering activity releases hormones the same as we do when we are exercising. It's exactly the same, endorphins, and that makes us feel really good, but the volunteering activity keeps our minds sharp, so an improvement in processing speed. Came out in the Lancet, sort of very well publicized. And really one of the secrets that runs like a theme. You go to the blue zones, what you've covered, areas of the world that have the longest living people, you see it there. People volunteering their time. And the social networks that it starts to rebuild. Meaningful connections of the person who's on the receiving end, gratitude for the time that you volunteered and the bond that you formed there. So it's like a ripple effect, but all of these little ripple effects sort of coalesce into what should be collectively a society, our collective response to the Surgeon General's call, but our combating this epidemic.
I can hear that person right now yelling at me, but Monica, I can't drive anymore. I don't have anyone who can give me a ride to someplace, and I don't know how to use Uber, so, what are the options for them? Who should they call? What should they do?
Yeah, which is why we have been very humbled. We've built even, sort of in my job, a successful aging platform. The thing that was missing was not the health expertise. The thing that was missing was exactly that social infrastructure, the social determinants of health expertise. The expert on that are our community allies. They've existed in the Cleveland area for a very, very long time. These are not-for-profit organizations run and managed by social workers, doing amazing things at no cost. The challenge is this awareness. I mean, you're covering this topic. The rest of the world, most of the world, is not even aware of the dangers that it poses and how deliberate we need to be. The next step, as you logically are sort of asking about, is trying to make this as easy as possible. So I'm always in favor of make it all services on a unified platform and reach out. You don't have the ability to come to us. We have the ability to come to you. We have a lot of things that are happening in a reactive setting, like, for example, hospital at home. But community health workers can also come into your home. They're from your community. They're known quantities. But they are coming in equipped with that knowledge of, I'm going to be bringing that care to you. I'm going to be bringing that social connectivity to you, and that includes technology. I mean, as you said, when we retire, even whatever era of technology that we grew up in, it's always changing. It's always evolving. I have to struggle to keep up with, sort of the younger physicians on my team. But the fact is that when we're learning something new, volunteering is number one. Number two, when I'm trying to learn something new, there's such connections being made in the brain that too is contributing to my mental health, my brain health, my physical health, plus it's empowering me. So that feeling of like, yes, the technology is changing, but it can also connect me to other people, not to this artificial world that doesn't talk back to me, but there are other older, younger, any sort of person like me that can connect across virtual platforms, people in other states who are going through the same stages of life, and even younger folks, the joy that our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren bring to us. That is the therapy for us. And the benefit of our years, the wisdom of our years and our experience that they get. There are very mindful artificial intelligence-based platforms that are making this very easy, and the learning of these platforms very easy too.
So for the children, the grandchildren, I mean, none of us talk anymore. Kids will sit at the dinner table on their phones, but for them, watching this and knowing when was the last time you talked to grandpa, or even your elderly neighbor next door who had no children, what should they be doing?
I think they have an incredible role to play, and I would say listening with an open mind. They have a lot to give in terms of introducing grandma, grandpa to this technology, but they also we have a lot to learn from our generations that have gone before us. My kids ask me, like, what was it like when there was no laptops, no computer, no screen time? What did you guys do?
No cell phone.
No cell phone. What did you do? And how old were you when you actually, had these things for the first time? And so the next logical question that they ask is, what did you do? How did you spend your time? What was your childhood like? It must have been really boring. And I say, no, it's the best time of my life. I have very fond memories of it. And that leads to the important conversations of creativity of how we could be spending that time and how good it makes all of us feel. Again, that volunteering thing, right? Why wait until we're older? For kids and grandkids start to think that way and start to volunteer their time in helping grandma and grandpa, that habit we're instilling in them for life. And we're opening up their avenue that there's no screens around, but hey, I'm really having a good time.
Great insight as always. Dr. Hashmi, thank you so much.
Thank you, Monica. Appreciate you having me.
An Ohio judge is utilizing social media and yoga as a way to create connection and community. Our Cleveland TV station and former director of the Ohio Department of Health, Amy Acton, share his story.
So the Surgeon General's report really calls out the role of technology on our lives and on our well-being. Social media and technology creating both the opportunity for connection, but also a tremendous amount of feeling isolated and alone. I had the honor of going to East Cleveland and meeting with Judge William Dawson, who is a judge of unique proportions, using social media as a way to educate and help connect and help heal.
One tool of transformation that you always have to use is your ability to control your emotions so that you don't put yourself in a bad position with the law. I said, you know what, I'm gonna be a different type of judge. I'm gonna be compassionate, I'm gonna be understanding, and I'm gonna have a belief in second chances. I don't want you to come back for any trouble. I don't want you to come back to be put in jail. I want to figure out how I can start the new year off helping you with whatever it is you need. Once social media began to become the thing to do, I said I have to put my message out on social media.
Many times our behaviors can be adaptations to sort of self-medicate, and I think Judge Dawson understands that deeply.
Namaste. It's Judge Dawson coming to you from the Yoga Lab. And today I want to talk to you about preserving your peace. Preserving your peace.
This comes from his deep, deep study of yoga, his deep belief that in Namaste and that the God in me greets the God in you, the most basic element of human dignity.
Yoga will help you no matter where you are. The ability to tap into your breath and calm down, it's invaluable. And Warrior One, arms up. I had a very unique opportunity after we started opening things back up to work with some of the seniors in our community. I noticed how they were so excited about connecting again. Welcome to the Yoga Lab, your first time at the studio.
I had the privilege of being in his yoga studio. They're coming together in a shared space to check in on one another, to be together, to have fun, to feel joy, and to heal.
And then maybe it'll be way up here. This will be our trees. But not today, not today. All right?
He's getting rid of the word probation. He's calling it a school of transformation, while being very much about the justice and the consequences and the taking responsibility. Also helps folks find ways of connecting that are much more healthy.
I actually have some of the probationers come to the yoga studio to do yoga. Of course, they don't have to pay, it's nothing like that, but they're gonna get the experience of breath work, meditation, mindfulness.
You can't help being around Judge Dawson to not feel the energy. It's infectious. Judge Dawson's a role model.
If you're struggling with loneliness or any other mental health crisis and need to talk to someone, you can call or text the National Crisis Hotline at 988. That'll do it for this edition of Prescription for Life. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back here next week with another dose. Until then, I'm Monica Robbins, wishing you and yours good health.
Thank you so much for tuning into Health Yeah. Please find me on Twitter and Instagram at Monica Robbins. Like and follow my Facebook page, Monica Robbins WKYC. Find video podcasts at Monica Robbins' channel on YouTube. And please subscribe. Wishing you great health and hope to see you again soon.
Thanks for listening to Health Yeah with Monica Robbins from WKYC Studios. Subscribe now so you never miss an update. And find more on everything you heard here on WKYC.com and on the WKYC app.